it really goes back to, and as much as off the rocker as he's been, it really does feel like it's the old James Carville. It's the economy, stupid.
Yeah.
It's people want, and here's a big difference, right? And I've been saying this online a little bit, is we have to stop confusing the GDP for economic conditions. We have to stop confusing the stock market for cost of living. They're not the same thing. They're just not. And in fact, they probably never. By the way, the GDP doesn't even really exist. It's a theory. It's like an economic model, the same way that we had climate models. That doesn't always necessarily mean that it works out. So when you take all that into consideration, Rich, and this is something, by the way, Charlie talked about this all the time, especially with Gen Z. He talked about the debt bubbles. He talked about people taking out these micro loans, buy now, pay later, all this stuff, just to get food, just to get DoorDash, just to get Uber Eats. This is not a way to live. And you wonder why these people are so upset at the system. Talk to me about the economic side of this.
It's people need to start thinking about this as the people's perceptions of their conditions in life, right? I mean, it's funny because you used to had leaders like George Bush talk about the human condition all around the world, except for in the United States. For once, people want their leaders to care about their conditions, Jack, which is why when we ask about our most important issues, we do a ranked distribution, which in my opinion is far superior than asking people what their singular most important issue is. When we do a ranked distribution, cost of living is running away with it. And economy and jobs is number 2, but it's amazing how much of a distant number 2 it is. Number 3, by the way, is healthcare. So all the top 3 issues are about the conditions of the economic conditions that people feel like they're living in, right? And while it is important, yes, that inflation hit a high of 9.2 under Biden, and it has since cooled under Donald Trump. That's absolutely true. It's the other things are, in their lives, healthcare costs, premiums, prescription drugs, their rents, right? How much it costs to lease or buy a vehicle, if they're even able to do that, have far outpaced the wages that they're bringing in. A voter told us the other day, and I know it's not exactly right, but this is a voter of leisure and hospitality, voted for Trump, young voter in Clark County in Nevada. What people don't really know that it is, that's Vegas. And, the tax on tips rule, is convoluted with the IRS. So they'll wind up just taking a standard deduction and that's it. And they won't even deal with, how whether or not that policy can benefit them. So we need to, look at this more. And GDP, like you said, it's totally useless to the average voter what GDP is. And the methodology has been changed so often. Obama changed it to include his friends in Hollywood. They're going to get a motion picture in the next year or so. Okay, throw that in GDP. Well, how does that help the average worker in Clark County, Florida? Clark County, Nevada. How does that help the average worker in, Lackawanna, Pennsylvania, right? It doesn't. They don't care about that. This is about how they feel their life their overall lives condition. And we actually asked that in our economic confidence index, business conditions, employment conditions, right? Income. Do you feel like in the next 6 months, your total family income is going to meet, the requirements of your economic conditions? And that will tell you a whole lot more. And honestly, that index plunged last month in October. It's not the lowest it's ever been, but it's the lowest it's been in Trump's second term. And it's sad to watch this because after Donald Trump was elected, it hit an all-time high after being completely stagnant under Joe Biden. So, it's a very real thing. And people, there's been a lot of people out there dismissive of this stuff and pointing to traditional indicators that you're pointing at. And it doesn't matter. None of that matters. This is about perception. And honestly, reality takes a while to change perceptions. We know this. There's a lot of there's a lot of research on this. You could have a low CPI, 3 months in a row, and it's going to take time for that to sink in and for people's views to change. And by the way, this was, again, I'm pointing this out for a reason. This was an electorally fatal mistake that Democrats made in the Obama and the Biden years. They would point to this and they would say, look, we created this many jobs. You just don't realize how good things are going. And they would ignore the conditions that people felt they were in and perception and the optics of it all. And honestly, Mark Penn, he's a Democratic pollster. He has this saying, he's been saying this for a long time. You know, you can continue with that, but reality always wins. And the fact is Republicans have to confront the reality because it will win and they will lose.
Well, and this is what it comes down to, right? And so it's optics. Look, I've been out there a ton talking about, guys, throw something out, tariff the outsourcing, tariff the remote work. And they even said they were going to start looking at it, by the way. Like, people do view themselves as in a competition with these foreign workers and when they're attacking people and all the rest of it. And so you've got to look like you're on the side of the American worker. And if you look like you're on the side of the American worker, then the American worker is going to support you. It's really as simple as that.
You know, Barack Obama in his first term was actually really good at this. You and I both know that he did absolutely nothing to address the economic conditions following the Great Recession. But he sure looked like he was, right? I mean, they were very good at putting on a show. And he would argue, obviously the new normal line, it got old by the end of his second term. And that's why Hillary Clinton, who tried to run on it, got wiped by Donald Trump. But it did work in the beginning. And that's a lesson Republicans should take. The American Reinvestment Act actually hurt the economy, but it doesn't matter. They weren't, this was the American Reinvestment Act. Don't you see me working very hard to get you shovel-ready jobs? It's optics. And the difference here is that Donald Trump's policies actually do have an economic benefit, right? So it doesn't have to all be about optics. Eventually, those policies will take root. And people know that too, which is a benefit that he has that others like Barack Obama were never given. His approval rating, in Obama I'm talking about, his approval rating used to be positive all the time, but his approval rating on the economy was negative all the time. Trump's first term, it was the opposite. His approval on the economy was always positive, but his overall approval was negative. That's the danger sign here. Something people should be, the red siren should be going off like crazy, because if you compare his first term to his second term in recent from July on, you'll see that now is no longer the case. That is optics. All right. They believe that his administration, by the spring and the summer, kind of just stopped concerning themselves about their problems. And again, until this is addressed, recognized, and course corrected, it can only get worse.